So happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the MayKing Show with your special guest host, a Smith called Keith. I hope you're not all still at half speed after the holidays, because my guest to kick off the new season of Fuel is a one-woman whirlwind. She's like one of those Hot Wheel cars in human form. We found each other through a chat about the AI social media marketing platform lately. I spoke to Kate and Chris at the firm to see if they could point me to someone who uses the tool in the UK, and they said, you need to speak to MayKing Tsang. Everyone calls her MayKing T, but that's another story. MayKing is a prolific user of the lately social media tool because literally all MayKing does all day, every day, is work on social media. She's made a business out of creating desire, or FOMO, for products and services using social media and her army of followers, friends and fans. She doesn't like the term influencer, but that's really how I would describe her. And if social media was football, she'd be Ronaldo. So I thought I'd help you all kick off the year with a few New Year's resolutions about how to win more business using some new skills. So strap yourself in, everyone, and prepare to launch into Fuel's 2021 season with an interview with the woman who puts the unity in community, MayKing T. Hello, love.
What an amazing introduction. How the devil are you, Keith? And Happy New Year.
And a Happy New Year to you. A Happy New Year to you. What'd you get for Christmas?
Oh, that'd be telling, wouldn't it? I got a lot of love and support, and lots of WhatsApp video messages as well. Yeah,
fantastic. Do you take any time off around this time, or is this peak season for you?
So I do give myself permission to have a bit of a break. I need to. Yes, just about 10 days, and then I get back into it. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that's good. So you feel all properly rested now?
Ready for 2021.
Fantastic. Well, it's got to be better than 2020, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, and I mean, apart from this Christmas, I mean, I know I did sort of tee up with the fact that you work a lot on social media. I mean, do you sort of make a point of disconnecting at any point?
Yes, because being addicted to social media can cost you a marriage. I'll tell you that for right now. So I do make a point of being present with my partner, and also giving my brain a rest. So yeah, definitely.
And it's really difficult, isn't it? I mean, sort of now, if we're all locked down and stuff, it's really difficult not to sort of keep checking in and just think, oh, I'll just have a quick look at the phone or the computer or whatever, you know.
Oh, absolutely. And we always have that age-old discussion about whether we can multitask or not. And I always tease a lot of men and say whether we can multitask. But I think in reality, there are certain things that you can multitask on and certain things that you can't. So,
right.
A lot of people do, watch TV or films or something whilst they're scrolling on social media. But are you really being present for both of them? Probably not. So I try not to.
I know. I work with my wife, right? And she was talking to me today, and I had the headphones on, and she said to me, you're not listening to me, are you? And I said, no, I'm actually at a conference in Argentina, and I was. So that's one of the advantages of lockdown at the moment, and everybody working from home. It's like, just this morning or today so far, I've done 2 deals in the UK. I went to Argentina for a public relations conference, and now I'm back in. Where are you? Sheffield, aren't you?
Yes.
Sheffield. I'm back in Sheffield to visit you, and then later on this afternoon, I'm going to Canada. So how about that?
You must be knackered.
If only they had air miles for the internet. That'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? So anyway, all right. So FOMO, you're wearing the shirt. Tell me all about it. What is it and how did you create this business? And what the hell has it got to do with tea?
Well, FOMO means the fear of missing out. And quite often people will say to me, FOMO? I don't want FOMO. I want JOMO, the joy of missing out. But do you want the joy of people missing out on your business? No, absolutely not. And so when I've been a professional live tweeter, yes, it is a thing, for over 10 years. And I actually pitched to my first clients. It was actually nearly 3 years ago now.
Right.
And I said, would you like a professional live tweeter? And they said, no, but can you do Instagram and Facebook at the same time? And I said, yeah, sure, no problem. You know what it's like, Keith, you know, when you're an entrepreneur, you say yes and you worry about the details later. But that's exactly what I did.
I wouldn't admit to that, but go on.
But with Andrew and Pete, who are my clients, they gave me the creative freedom to create lots of live content to put out onto social media to amplify the buzz and excitement of their conference and put it out onto social media. So with the first conference, Atomicon 19, I tweeted for them, I think it was about 600 times on their account. I did 15 Facebook posts, but 5 Facebook Lives. So I was interviewing speakers and sponsors and attendees, and basically having that conference feeling and putting it out onto social media for the lurkers. And that's something we'll talk a little bit more about later. Sure. And then on Instagram stories, I did exactly the same. So in creating FOMO, what I'm doing is I'm telling the world how amazing Andrew and Pete are. I am showcasing what you missed out on, why you need to be at this conference. And if you missed out, you need to book onto the next conference. So in tweeting 1,600 times, in doing over 100 stories, I didn't show the full picture. You know, we didn't do a live stream of the whole conference, but I took great snippets and, you know, I interviewed attendees, speakers and sponsors, just so that people who are lurking on social media are watching, sitting on the fence and thinking, oh, Andrew and Pete, Atomicon 19, what's this all about? And because there was so much great feedback from people and the insights that I was able to share on their account, they managed to sell 425 tickets within the first week for the conference for next year. So for Atomicon 20. And that's what FOMO is about. It's about capturing those live moments, real, raw, right now at a conference, putting it out onto social media for the lurkers. And then if people, you know, can see what's going on, if they're really excited about it, then hopefully they will certainly find more about them, or certainly book a ticket for the next conference.
Fantastic. And I mean, so Andrew and Pete, what business are they in?
So they are content marketers. So they help small businesses become mighty. So atomic. And so so they help small businesses, you know, really get their message out there through the use of social media, marketing, emails, and sales. And they have a membership called the Atomic Membership. And as part of that Atomic Membership, they also have this incredible conference where we all get together as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that should be something that we should all find out a little bit more about. So I'm glad to give them a name check. So we'll make sure we stop by their stall. That's for sure. But so what's the connection with tea then?
So I actually had a tea business.
I see.
And yeah, so I am, my name is MayKing, as you quite rightly said. That's my first name. And I am on all the socials as MayKing Tea. Making tea, get it?
Got it.
So I used social media very well for my own tea business.
Right.
That's how I got into the live tweeting and then now FOMO creating. So you will find me on all the socials as MayKing Tea.
And you're a bit of an expert on tea as well.
Apparently, according to my business card, I'm one of the top 50 recommended speakers of tea in the world.
Fantastic. Well, I was, as you know, I was listening to Malcolm Gladwell, to his podcast, and I thought his 4th of July one that he did about the Boston Tea Party was very very enlightening in terms of, you know, sort of the fact that it was actually a smuggler's game before the history writers got to it and turned it into a revolutionary affair. But the thing that got me, have you ever tried, or have you come across that boohee tea that he talks about?
Yes,
Oh,
I
you
have.
have?
Yeah. And in fact, the chap
Does
that
it smell
he
like a tire fire?
the chap that he was talking to, Tony Giebly, is massive in the tea world, and I have a lot of respect for what he does. What he
Right.
does is absolutely incredible. And yeah, thank you for sharing that podcast with me, because it was absolutely wonderful. And there are, you know, other things that could be rewritten as well. You know, you've got the opium wars of the 1800s, and actually tea had a lot to do with it. So really,
Yes.
it ought to be called the Tea Wars, really, which led to the, you know, separation of China of Hong Kong. But you know, it's actually got Hong Kong's got given back to China. But that was based on tea as well.
But wasn't opium the diversion for the tea war, basically, wasn't it? That
Yes.
was what they introduced to so that they could exploit Chinese for the actual tea.
Without a doubt. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, well, it's following the age-old thing. If you can't compete with them, just drug them.
That's exactly right.
And now look at America, all drugs. Fell for their own game. So what's the main difference between you and what people would know as an influencer?
So, I mean, to be honest, there's lots of different definitions of an influencer. And even before the days of social media, an influencer would be someone like a celebrity. So anyone who has got a fan base, as it were, or a community, if they endorse something, if they say something, then, you know, a lot of people might go and buy it. So in the way, in social media, if you've got a community, then you have influence. Okay, so you do have your, you know, your big celebrities who endorse something on social media, and then suddenly the sales rocket. But there are different levels of influencer, and some of it is based on the number of followers that they have, but some of them is based on what they actually say. So for me, I am an influencer in the fact that sometimes when I talk about businesses, you know, lately, for example, you know, that's how we met.
Yes.
And people have inquired about their products, about their product, because I've mentioned how amazing it is and how I absolutely love it, and why and how I use it. As a FOMO creator, though, I'm using a bit of my influence, but I actually create FOMO for my clients. So, you know, for another client of mine, she had an online challenge, and in the middle of the online challenge, she, you know, she wanted to give value to her customers, and then she also wanted to, you know, if people wanted to know more, want to buy her program, then they would buy her program. Now, what I did on that instance, so it wasn't a conference, it was a digital challenge. What I did was created FOMO for her by being part of her online challenge community, and being a community manager, as it were, in her Facebook community, interacting with some of the attendees. And I also did interviews. So that's another part of my FOMO creation. So I did interviews to showcase what an impact this challenge had on that particular business owner,
Right.
and why people should, you know, sign up and maybe potentially buy the program. So in that particular case, I was hired to create FOMO by doing interviews and by being a community manager. But I also used a small aspect of my influence by telling the world that there's this challenge coming up on how to use LinkedIn more effectively. It's a free challenge. You may want to go in. And then, of course, the interviews were then repurposed as Facebook ads. And with the Facebook ads, it generated a conversion. So with that one, for example, she had the first challenge that she had, I think she had about 1,300 attendees, and Facebook ads were used to bring people into the challenge.
Right.
And then there was a 5% conversion as a result of the interviews that I did, which she then used as Facebook ads as well to tell the world about her LinkedIn Quality Leads Formula program. She had a 5% conversion on that. So that's another way in which I created live content. I interviewed attendees live and we repurposed them as Facebook ads, and then it led to a conversion. So hopefully that explains the difference between influencer and what I do as a FOMO creator.
Yeah, you're kind of more of real time, sort of almost like if I can put it in automotive terms, because that's one that I can understand, it's almost like a nitrous oxide kind of injection while you're already moving, you know. So it's almost like something that you layer on top of an event or something else like that to actually bring it into a live environment rather than, you know, it just, I see how that works. Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of adding momentum to something.
It definitely is. And, you know, my tagline for FOMO Creator is bridging the gap between social media and PR. So you know, you have a community already. Some of them are already engaged. Some of them are lurking, sitting on the fence. And, you know, and some of them may need a bit of, you know, convincing. Some of them may not even have heard of you. But if you've created a good marketing strategy on email, on social media, you've created press releases and been on TV and radio as well, if you want to use traditional PR, I sit on top of that in order to get people, you know, give that injection of nitrous oxide, as you said, to really give it a good old push. Yes.
Okay, well that makes a lot of sense. Now, there's been kind of a lot of talk recently about, you know, the fact that brands now are moving or are tending to kind of move away or lose control, let's say, of their marketing strategy in a good way, rather than actually having a linear kind of strategy that is on this date we're going to do this, and then we have an event, and then we've got PR, and then TV after that. That's not happening anymore. And what's happening is instead is that a product is going out there and then it's taking on a life of its own on social media, and, you know, and that things are coming to light about a product or an event that maybe hasn't even been considered in the marketing, that's actually now come through in the sort of social media, in its life on social media. I mean, how can brands keep control of their message when there's so much potential for it to take on a life of its own? I mean, that, you know, it scares the crap out of marketing people, you know, that they won't be able to manage that message. I mean, is there a way? I mean, is this what you do? Is it being able to manage that message and keep the sort of USPs going through to the end user?
So, you know, just like in some circles, sales can be considered to be a dirty word. Marketing can also be, a dirty word, as it were. And so social media has really democratized the airwaves because, as you quite rightly said, it's not necessarily that brands can't control, okay, but really the power's gone back to the consumer or gone back to the prospect, where they can openly go online and say, oh, hey, this product is not quite right, this service isn't quite right, and so on. And, you know, some platforms are conducive to that. You know, people tend to go on Twitter to moan about stuff, and hopefully brands will, you know, put an immediate response to that. Now, there are platforms out there that you can use to listen. And it's important to listen. You can't, you know, you can't hide away from complaints and so on. No. But what you can do is deal with it. And sometimes when you deal with it openly in a public forum like social media, it will actually create better PR for you. So this is a case that happened in Australia when I lived there. There was a pet store, you know, in a shopping centre, and there was this dog, and the dog had one of those collars, you know, so that it doesn't scratch itself, and it had bandages all around the paws.
The collar of shame.
the collar of shame, and bandages around his paws. So some of the passers-by took to Facebook immediately, saying, "Oh my God, this pet shop owner, they're doing a terrible thing, having this this dog in the shop window. How dare they?" Now, the pet store, if they wanted to control the situation, they could have quite easily deleted the comments.
Right.
But that would be a bad thing to do. That would be bad PR, because what are you hiding, in deleting those comments? And there's, someone will have seen those comments. What the pet store owner did instead is actually answer each and every comment. And as it turned out, the dog had a low immune system. The best way for the dog was to stay there. And I think someone even reported them to the RSPCA equivalent of Australia. Sure. They came around, had an inspector. They confirmed that it was the best, best place for the poor dog. And because of the way that this pet store owner dealt with that situation, in dealing with all the comments and so on, they actually ended up getting national and they got statewide press and also national press as well, because this was a way in which social media, the people who didn't know the story went in, wanted to say, "Oh, look at this," but rather than delete it and try and control it, they dealt with it in a very responsible way. So there are lots of tools that you can use to listen to see if people are slagging off your brand. Or talking about your brand. I mean, that's the other thing as well. If people are saying, "Oh my God, you are amazing," you want to actually say, "Well, thank you very much." So Agora Pulse is another tool that I use. It's a social listening tool where you can actually put in some keywords, to do with your brand, and listen out for them. And if anyone has mentioned your name, then you can go and respond. So if it's constructive feedback, go and deal with it publicly, don't delete it. If it's positive, then again, that person has taken the time to say something nice, to go back and say, "Thank you very much." There's other tools as well, like I think it's Brand24, and then there's lots of hashtag monitoring tools as well. So for a conference, you want to amplify the buzz of a conference, you can use hashtag listening tools and reporting tools in order to listen out for that.
Right. And I can imagine that that what you do is going to become more important in this kind of lockdown, not lockdown situation, where it's this K-shaped recovery, as they like to call it. That people are afraid to sort of get together at the moment, and they're not sort of meeting isn't the preferred approach. So something like this is going to be quite key. But if companies are using more social media, do you think that it's the companies, it behooves the company basically to make sure that all of their employees are able to talk on behalf of the brand in all of their various personal, because the great illustration being that you may have 50 people in your company, and they all have their own separate channels and their own separate hobbies and their own separate communities, and they can then spread word about your brand in places that you might not even have thought about before. So do you think that now is the time to start training employees to be able, all of them, to be able to talk about your brand on social media?
Absolutely, yeah. So my dear friend, and he's a real friend because we go to rock concerts together. Neil Schaefer, he's written a book called The Age of Influence, and he talks about employee advocacy. Your employees are your best PR. Your best PR for your company. Absolutely. Right. And so, when the company page puts something out, it's a little bit staid, a little bit, sort of mission statement, and boring and so on, no personality. But it's your employees that can really join in the conversations and, bring a bit of color to those formal posts. And we keep going back to to them, but I love them so much. But lately, do this really well. Whenever there is a bit of positive PR about them, several of the people involved in the startup, they will jump on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and they would say something, and so you have a social media marketing team to put out the posts about what it is you do or what you're up to and this, that, and the other. But your employees can be your eyes and ears to see if people are talking about you outside of that, and you can definitely go in and talk about it. Because at the end of the day, especially with the growth of social media, we cannot hide behind our logos anymore. As I say, social media has really democratized the airways. Consumers have the power. And so we need to listen. We can't just broadcast. We can't just say, hey, buy my stuff, discount now, 15% off. You can't do that. You need to really prove that you are the one that are to be hired. You are the product. You are the service that people want. And how do we do that? That's where the PR comes in, where the employees or, in the case of startups, the people who are involved, the coders, the marketers can go in and listen, interact as people, and have their own personal branding with that as well.
Well, it's great that you mentioned that, and obviously we don't want to turn this into a lately show either. But at the same time, it really is a masterclass in social media, because, I mean, I was using it incorrectly until we first we met up, and I'll quite openly admit that I wasn't totally aware of the way that social media, how you can lean into it, and how it can actually it's almost like surfing, in such a way that you sort of go with it rather than try and fight it. But and obviously you've got people like Donald Trump who uses social media as a megaphone, and it really isn't. It's more about taking the smallest ripple of a conversation and then using the people that you're connected to amplify that as well. I mean, is there a kind of a golden rule that you always tell people about sort of social media, in terms of making sure that not that every message gains momentum, because you don't want to do that all the time either, but at the same time, what's the kind of, if I've got something to say that I want, if I'm going to launch, say, this podcast, all right, and I want more people to know, what would be the classic way to do it?
Well, one thing I do want to say is that you mustn't beat yourself up, Keith, in the way that you use social media incorrectly, because I did it too. When I first went on Twitter was my first platform. I did the same. I said, buy my stuff, which is not the right way to do it. And if you want to talk about your podcast, you can't just say, here's a link to my latest podcast with Making Tea. I mean, I'm good, but I'm not that good, right? We need to tell people more about it. So, what were the key takeaways from the podcast interview? What did you learn? Maybe share that information. What was it that you really enjoyed about the podcast? Talk about that. So with social media, most people tend to write the one post and then link to their video, or link to a blog post, or link to their latest sales page or something like that. But what about the lead to it? What about the actual content itself? So, and remember, when we talk about creating content for the lurkers, we need to showcase who we are, what we're doing behind the scenes, not the polished podcast episode, ta-da, at the end, but maybe, a photograph between, the two of us, putting that up, and then maybe, a little bit later, a little snippet. And every launch of a podcast, for example, it almost needs to be, there needs to be a marketing campaign behind that podcast. So maybe extracting little snippets from it, and popping that onto LinkedIn or Twitter or social media. Give people, that excitement, give them that FOMO. Oh, I've just listened to a minute. Where's the rest of it? Well, you're going to have to click and tune in. So
So you do recommend sort of, because obviously Twitter only gives you 240 characters or whatever that you can use in text, but so to record a minute or something, like a little sort of audio or a video piece or something else like that, where you can get more information across, that's kind of a way to do it.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think I spoke last year at a conference called from the guys behind Pods Up North, and I name checked a wonderful lady, Amy Woods, who is across all of socials as a Content 10X, because
Right.
she talks about repurposing your content. So it's very basically similar to what I was saying. Rather than just do that one tweet with the link of your full podcast, you know, that podcast has got lots of great content within that hour episode, so you can chop it up and share a bit of that, you know, repurpose all those bits. And there's lots of different ways of sharing that. You know, use Lately to generate several LinkedIn posts or Facebook posts or Instagram posts from that one video. So from that one blog post, that one podcast episode, that one video, you can chop it up and, you know, showcase little bits and give teasers. It's like it's like a trailer to a film.
That's exactly the analogy I was going to put. I mean, imagine everything is a movie, and then
Yes.
you have different clips for different audiences, you know, so that, you know, if you're sort of, you know, Stephen sort of or Tom Hanks or somebody else like that, then you'll market that particular actor to that particular demographic. And if, you know, I understand. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. So, I mean, to basically consider each thing as a production, and then, you know, like you say, to make it a launch.
Yes, absolutely. But in addition to that as well, you know, with social media, it's not about me, and hey, what do you think about me? It's about your prospects. It's about your clients. It's about building relationships, because you never know who is watching. So always go to other people, you know, people that you admire, people that could be potential prospects, and go and do a bit of lurking on their stuff. But don't just lurk. Thank them. If you've read a blog post that was really useful, you read a LinkedIn article that was really useful, thank them. Because when you're networking, you know, when we were allowed to go out and play, and hopefully we'll be allowed to go out and play later on in the year, you know, you go to networking events and you wouldn't just thrust a business card at somebody. You talk to them and you get to know them. You know, you wouldn't look over your shoulder to see if there's a better prospect, but you'd really get to know that person. And then you would make, you know, arrange a phone call and get to know them. So on social media, you can do exactly the same. Network online by looking at their posts, engaging with it, you know, tell them what you loved about the article. Don't just say, great post, thanks for sharing. Be a bit more, you know, maybe you've got a question. Why don't you ask them a question? You know, there's been times where I had a question, I'd do a video, I'd put it up as an Instagram story, I'd repurpose it, put it out onto Twitter, and I'd also put it onto LinkedIn as well, and tag that person, you know, across the airwaves. Just because they are the expert and I want to ask a question of them. And so hopefully they will answer. Or if they've, you know, if they've written an Instagram post and I really enjoyed reading it, I will write in a comment as well. And what you're doing is you are building your brand. You are, you know, if people don't know who you are, then people want to get to know who you are. And if you're being a really nice person by networking and commenting and sharing other people's posts and that kind of stuff, you are creating a personality for yourself, and people will start to form an opinion of you, and that's what's really important in branding.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, one of the things that I mean, I hear you when you say that, when you say that, and my immediate response is to say, well, you know, I haven't got time to do that. You know, I haven't got time. It takes up too much time. And you've seen, I mean, you must come across loads of people who say that to you. And what's your kind of canned response to that? Because that is an obvious drawback, is to, you know, if I'm going to spend all my day, right, trying to tag people and mention people and do 15 different tweets about one particular thing, you know, how can I justify that time?
You've got to measure it. My canned response is for people who say you haven't got time. I often say, and I think I said it to yourself, didn't I, Keith? You haven't got time for your prospects, you haven't got time for your clients, and they're not your prospects yet, they're not your clients yet, but you need to sort of build your reputation.
Right.
You need to showcase that you're providing value, not just in the content that you're sharing, but in networking, getting to know other people. So, when I came back from Australia in 2016, I'd been away from the UK for 6 years, so I was effectively starting from scratch. So I did exactly the same. I networked face to face, but I networked online as well. I wrote articles, I followed people, I would engage with people, talk to people, get on Twitter chats, attend, listen to podcasts, and I'd live tweet people's podcasts, or I'd, and tag them and thank them for it, and just start building relationships online so that I can build this reputation. And in building this reputation and people engaging with me, then eventually, I got clients and prospects. If you've got the time, definitely outsource some of the stuff. There's definitely things that you can outsource, but I think as a business owner, you definitely need to show up in some of these platforms as well as you yourself. So definitely outsource some stuff, but you definitely should need to show up as well.
There was a phrase I picked up from another show the other day, which it's a Zulu phrase, actually. It's called Sawubona, and it literally means hello in Zulu. But the meaning behind it is, I see you, I'm here, I see you. And I think that kind of applies to this whole thing, in that, that it's not just a question of going, yeah, and hit like, or, hit yay, well done, whatever. It's about doing something, going another step, and letting people know that you are there and stuff. But obviously it is a time-consuming business, and your business is constructed around that whole thing. I mean, what's your maximum number of tweets per day? How many have you done in any one time? What's the most?
So at in-person conferences, I do tweet on average 1,200. I think the most I tweeted was 1,648, I think it was. And virtual conferences, my average was 548, I think, something like that.
Wow. I mean, you're doing about just over one a minute or something. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so
some of them are likes, some of them are retweets, some of them
right.
are engaging with people. And I'd say about 12 to 15% of the tweets that I do for conferences have been, original tweets where I'm documenting what people are saying. But the retweets and likes and engaging with people is also what's important as well on behalf of the client.
Right.
Because again, for your client, you want to show your personality as a brand. You don't just want to listen to the speaker and regurgitate what the speaker has said, because chances are lots of other people have done exactly the same, not just on Twitter, but on LinkedIn, in the form of blog posts, and also Instagram stories and Instagram posts and Facebook posts as well. So to stand out, it's really, again, about the PR side of it, the creating FOMO, bridging the gap between social media and PR is about creating live content where people see the value in what you share with the speakers, but also the engagement, how interactive are you? And speakers and sponsors of a conference can also create FOMO for themselves as well. If they hire a FOMO creator, like myself.
Like yourself, for example. Just randomly picking one.
To create live content whilst they're speaking, because they're missing a trick on broadcasting their message or amplifying their incredible talk or their sponsorship onto social media.
Wow. And so, I mean, with the pandemic, and hopefully it's going to be the worst of it behind us, but obviously there's still going to be ripples, and people aren't going to be 100% confident about moving getting back to where we used to be. And I think that those days are probably gone now. I mean, what changes have you seen in the social media scene as a result of all these lockdowns? And I mean, do you think they are here to stay?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, in the marketing space, people have been saying for years about, talking about social media and the importance
Sure.
of digital, and it's taken a pandemic to shake things up for businesses, and for businesses that don't have a presence online, they're scuppered, really. So things have definitely changed. I mean, last year, in 2019, I was creating FOMO for a lot of conferences, networking events. I was meeting people face to face. Then in the 2020, I was doing virtual events, virtual summits, virtual conferences. And I've heard a lot of people who are creating networking events who said that this year they're actually going to do a hybrid.
Right.
Running face-to-face conferences and networking events, we're social creatures. We need that social interaction, but it can be exhausting. And what 2020 taught us that it is absolutely possible to create a virtual conference, do it well, network, do networking well, create opportunities for people to network and build their brands and so on. And so we will definitely see a hybrid. It's definitely not going away.
Fantastic. And I mean, it's probably more down to a different mindset, down to the sort of can do, because I think that, people like yourself, come in and fill a gap that that maybe 3 or 4 years ago we didn't even realize there was a gap, there was going to be a gap, and suddenly one opens up, and there you are, an expert in that kind of thing. But I mean, given all the controversy, whatever you want to, however you pronounce it, around the US election. I mean, do you think that there is a legitimate role that social media plays in voting?
Yes. Yes. I mean, it wasn't just the US elections, was
No.
it? It was
You had your
Brexit as
Brexit as well.
well. And now that it's been highlighted just how much influence social media had on that, and outside influences as well, it's now up to governments to ensure that things are put in place to make sure that it doesn't happen again. I mean, before social media, there was definitely influence on TV, on
It's all
radio,
about
and
influence.
it is all about influence. And because you've got swing voters and they don't know where to, so they need to find information to help them decide who they're going to vote for.
Right.
And so social media definitely has a big part to play, and hopefully things will get cleared up and cleaned up so that it can be done responsibly going forward.
And I mean, I've got to ask you this anyway, because there's probably nobody better placed to sort of give an answer on it. But I mean, I did a podcast recently with a lady called Vanessa Green, and she's very much about the integrity in content, and from approaching content from a journalist's perspective. And I know that integrity and journalism don't usually go hand in hand, but there you go. This is the world we live in now, eh? But I mean, do you think that social media platform owners are actually publishers, and they do have a responsibility for managing the content that goes out under their brand?
We're all publishers, businesses. We ought to see ourselves as brands now. We are also publishers as well, and we have a responsibility to communicate effectively what we put out there. And yes, the platforms do have a responsibility to do that. I mean, I love that Trump was fact checked on
Yes.
Twitter. There was a bit of reluctance from Facebook to do the same thing. They wanted to advocate, free speech for all and all the rest of it. But, due to pressure, they eventually, and YouTube as well, it took big brands to decide they're not going to spend money with the big social media platforms, and it took the dollar or the pound to make them realize, okay, Google and Facebook need to do something about that. So yeah, they do have a responsibility, and hopefully again going forward things will get better. Yeah.
Good, excellent. Because I mean, and something else that I want to clear up just for anybody that may be listening to this, is that when we first started talking, I mean, there is a perception. I'll just rewind slightly. There is a perception that social media is sort of frippery, and that it doesn't actually. It may enhance something, but it doesn't really. It doesn't really do the job of sort of selling. But when you and I first started talking, and you said something that was quite meaningful to me, that appealed to the salesman in me, which was about the fact that what you do is effectively you shoot everything through the prism of putting bums on seats and shifting boxes, and which I thought was very appealing from what you'd normally think about in terms of social media. I mean, is Twitter a legitimate sales channel? I mean, and if so, I mean, what are the three biggest misconceptions about it as a channel? Do you think it's possible to run a business through it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, all channels. Whichever channel you concentrate on, it can there's customers to be found on every channel, and so you can definitely build. Well, not solely build your business on it, because there's other external factors as well. But
Right.
yeah, you can definitely do that. I mean, I did it.
Yes.
As I said, I when I came back to the UK, it was and in fact, when I went to Australia, I didn't know anybody, and I had to start from scratch. And when I first started my business in 2009, again, I knew nobody. I had to start from scratch. I went to networking events face to face, but I also online started building relationships with people as well. Did the same thing in Australia, did the same thing back in Sheffield, in 2016. And so, yeah, Twitter is a great platform for building relationships. There's these things called Twitter chats, which, it is, a weekly show where they typically have a guest speaker who's answering questions about a particular subject. But anybody can chip in with their words of wisdom. And also there's conversations happening on the same Twitter chat. The conversations are grouped together on a hashtag. And so that's how I started to build relationships. And, within a few months, I started to quickly build my reputation as, someone who knew something about tea. And then, a journalist put out a tweet and said, looking for an expert in tea, can anyone help? And I got, lots of people recommended me.
Right.
And as a result of that, and talking to the journalists, I ended up getting on TV, radio, a national magazine, and also worked with the Dairy Board as well. So, but that would not have happened if I didn't build my relationship with people on Twitter chats. It wouldn't have happened if I didn't write about tea and shared knowledge. It wouldn't have happened if I didn't network with people, got to know people, and understand who they are and how I can help them and how they can help me, if they can help me, and all the rest of it. It's all about networking face to face, but also online as well. So whichever platform, it's all about building relationships.
And so is that your kind of your recommendation for anybody that's looking to kind of improve their social media presence, is relationships and sort of cultivating them?
Oh, without a doubt, 100%. 100%, yeah, definitely share your expertise, showcase you are a leader in your field, but also if anybody is taking the time to like your post or comment on your post, have a quick nosy, see who they are, and start engaging in conversation with them, because you never know who they know. That's
Right.
the thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, this is a new business development show, and one of the when I first started in the industry, the accepted sort of channel was to use telephone, was to use the phone, and you'd use, there'd be the cold phone call, which was then supplanted by the cold email, and then obviously now with GDPR, unsolicited emails really can get people's backs up, and now as an industry we're looking for other ways to contact prospects, and every route requires a different approach. I mean, if you were looking to reach somebody at a company you'd never spoken to before, I mean, how would you start to engage them on social media?
Well, how would you start to engage with them if they were in the room?
I knew you'd do something like that.
That's pretty much it. So if you're on LinkedIn, you find them, you connect with them, send a personalized note, look at their stuff, schmooze them, like their stuff, comment on their stuff, even share it onto your own community if you think your community will find it useful. That's how you do it. And then when the time is right, then you start, sending a note and connecting with them and saying, wondering whether we can have a chat. But you can't just go in and connect with them and say, can we have a chat immediately, if you haven't done the groundwork in the first place. So if on your, I'm using LinkedIn as an example, if your profile doesn't, is not clear on what you do, if you don't have any LinkedIn articles to showcase what you do, if the last LinkedIn post you wrote was 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 2 months ago, and you attempt to connect with someone, they're not going to want to know you. No. So before you go and connect with someone, you need to make it viable to them. They need to know why, who is this person? They need to get to know you, they need to like you, they need to trust you, and they can only do that if you share value in the first place.
Put a clean pair of shoes on, socks, and look respectable, basically, before you start introducing yourself to people. Yeah. And with regards to like LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has become a channel that a lot of people in new business like using. I mean, is there an accepted protocol? I mean, is it different on LinkedIn than Twitter? I mean, do you wear different, literally, do you wear different hats, from Twitter than you would on LinkedIn?
That's a very good question. I personally don't. Some people do. I think of all the platforms, LinkedIn and Twitter are probably very similar. So, you can have the formality with personality on Twitter, and definitely in the last, last year or two, LinkedIn is, it's no longer a place to hold your CV. It is a place for you to build relationships, get prospects, get clients, and so on. So,
do you think it's less formal now, LinkedIn?
Yeah. I mean, you've seen the developments. It's trying to chase on Instagram success, with posts you can add little stickers on. You've got LinkedIn stories now, which are 20 seconds in length, as opposed to Instagram, which is 15. I love on LinkedIn, you can send a direct message to somebody, or you can send a voice message, which is, that personal touch, which is wonderful. But yeah, in order for people to get to know you, who you are as a person, you need to show your personality. It's not just all about, this is what I do, these are my, sales products and so on. You need to also show behind the scenes of what you do. You need to show a bit of personality. Right. Did someone help you today? Give them gratitude, that kind of thing. So LinkedIn and Twitter, I would say I'm the same on all platforms and in real life as well. But I think that LinkedIn and Twitter are probably very, very similar in nature.
Right. Okay. Well, that's great advice. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I, for one, will certainly learn from it. And I know it's going to be useful for anybody listening to this. But I mean, if you weren't doing what you do now, I mean, what career would you have chosen, do you think? Where would you go? What would you be doing?
Golly. I would love to be hired to be the joker in the room, not cracking jokes, but laughing at people's jokes.
Yes, a paid laugher. Yes. A paid laugher.
A paid laugher. Do you know, I've no idea. That's a great question. I love what I do. Can I not do this job instead?
Sure. Yeah, if you want to. If you want to. It's
Well, in that
just,
case, yes,
you wouldn't be an environmental campaigner or something.
Actually, I am very, very environmentally conscious. One of the reasons why I didn't have children actually was my contribution to the planet. Although, you know, I'm a human, I'm flawed, so I am a big fat carnivore. But I am trying to reduce my intake and be more aware. You know, try to go for the healthier options and stuff. But yes, so yeah. Environmental campaigner. Yeah, I've been doing that consciously. Yeah, since the late 80s, I would say.
Right. Okay, well that's good, and I must say, I for one, I still like a bit of meat, but I am looking forward to the alternative meats and the sort of plant-based stuff. I think there's some very interesting things coming up on that, and
Oh yeah,
you know, be quite interesting. Some of it actually looks quite tasty, doesn't it? That chicken, sort of fake chicken, looks pretty good.
I can't remember the name of it now, but I've got a dear vegan friend, and he took me out for a burger. I'm gonna have to Google it. But they had this, it begins with S, but they had this sort of thing which is like a meat replacement, and it was absolutely delicious. It's just, you know, the flavors that you add into it, which was incredible. I wish I could remember the name of it now.
Yeah, I was going to
Anyway.
say soy, but it can't be.
No, it had anyway, doesn't matter.
We'll Google it, and we'll find out later on, mate. But so I mean, the fact is that, I mean, so if you were getting back onto the sort of social media thing, and this is probably my last couple of questions. I mean, we've seen a lot of pushback recently from sort of brand managers and CMOs with regards to kind of email marketing, and the fact that you can't do, you know, mass email marketing. You can't do large batch emails, that it's all about one-to-one and personality. And you've quite rightly pointed that out as a sort of a way forward. And so if you were working in a marketing agency or a digital agency, I mean, what would you recommend that they did in terms of, I mean, would you build social media into their new business outreach program?
Yeah, without a doubt, you can't do anything without social media. Well, no, that's not true. That's not strictly true. You can definitely do business without social media, but it's growing, and so it definitely needs to be incorporated. I think the techniques used in traditional marketing, though, where it was a broadcast, that definitely needs to change. So with social media, we do need to ensure that it is a two-way engagement, and you know, a great place. Like I say, when you're talking to someone on Instagram, on Facebook, on you know, when you're commenting on YouTube, you're not just talking to that one person. You've got all these lurkers who are watching your stuff as well. So, you know, it's like when you're at a party. Now, you've been invited to a party, haven't you, Keith?
I think once, I remember.
Well, that one time.
That was just the first time, and then never again. Not after that incident.
That one time you were invited to a party, you probably were in sort of a circle, and there were two people talking, and then others were waiting to inject with their words of wisdom when there was an appropriate pause. And that, my friends, is social media. Yeah. So you're not just talking to that one person, you're talking to that circle of people. It doesn't matter which platform you're on. So create content for the lurkers. That's what I'm talking about. You're creating content for that party, for that circle of people, because you never know who's watching. I've had several clients, you know, who hire me on the strength of one day. They've seen me at a conference doing my amazing stuff, and they think, oh my God, I need this FOMO creator to create FOMO for my challenge or my product launch. And then there's other clients who've been lurking on my stuff for 18 months before they've approached me.
Right.
And so if I didn't show behind the scenes stuff, if I didn't write articles showcasing how I've helped others, if I didn't answer people's questions and showcase myself as a really approachable person, then then I would not have been approached by that person who became a client after 18 months.
Lurkers is a bit of a kind of a harsh word, though, isn't it? What about wallflowers? Does wallflowers work?
Yes, absolutely.
Lurkers has got like a Walking Dead thing to it, hasn't it? Almost like shufflers.
Well, I have to admit, I've never watched The Walking Dead. What? Get out!
Good Lord. You've got some binge watching to catch up on, I can tell you. If you're ever stuck for a TV show and you've got like 4 days, you could probably do it. No, I think I don't know how long it would condense down to, but it's probably more than 4 days now.
But yes, going back to your choice of word, introvert, definitely. I class myself as an ambivert. So, I'm on a sliding scale. Sometimes I have extrovert moments, and I certainly do have introvert moments as well. And yes, there are people who are introverted. They're too afraid to comment. They might like if they're braving their world. However, when you like someone's comment, your like is going to get lost in a sea of different likes. If it was a particular post and it had, even 3 or 4 likes, that person who's written the post is not going to look at every post to see who's liked them and who they can start an engagement with. So how can you stand out? How can you create FOMO for your business? How can you get that relationship started? That's by commenting.
Say something.
Say something. I know it's easier said than done, but please don't worry about being judged.
Not on the internet, surely. I mean, who on the internet, on Twitter, is going to judge you?
No, honestly, don't worry about being judged. Just be mindful about what you're going to put out there, of course. But, just be a nice human being. That's Absolutely. All you need to do. That's the first step in business. Be a nice human being.
Well, and that's something we could all do for 2021 as well. It's certainly been one of my New Year's resolutions as well. So, when you're not FOMOing and social mediaing, how do you decompress? What on earth do you do to try and relax? Or do you ever relax?
Oh, I do relax now. We were talking about social media addiction and how marriage was cost as a result of it. There were other things in place as well. But no, I love to relax by watching films. I love watching films.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my partner is a science fiction writer, and he loves watching films, and we discuss characters and plot development, and so I love that side of things.
Fantastic. So what sort of stuff? I mean, do you watch sci-fi as well, or is that your go-to genre?
It's not my go-to genre, but I do like sci-fi, and in fact, when we were first on the online dating app, that is Bumble, we were talking about our love of films, and we both talked about A Fifth Element.
Oh yes, the Bruce Willis.
Yes, Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman, and Back to the Future. Oh, love that!
Fantastic.
Absolutely love that. So yes, but it's not my go-to. I like films, thinky films. Things that make me think and and make me consider and things like that. So of a political persuasion, I'm very into political dramas and that kind of stuff.
Oh wow, I can imagine a very highbrow conversation around your place around dinner. That'll be not the sort of house where you discuss the latest episode of Friends or a certain episode of Seinfeld or something, is it?
No, well, actually, we're currently finishing off Big Bang Theory. Absolutely love that comedy show, and we're watching it from the start to finish, and we're just sort of discussing that kind of stuff. So yeah, I love Friends.
Yeah, I know. You can't go wrong with it, can you? Can't go wrong. And talking of which brings us on to music as well, which is always good. So we last year we were playing the Isolation Island game, and because we still have lockdown, I was hoping it was only going to be about 3 months long, but it's now turned into a year. So the ripping off the BBC Desert Island disc, we've had an Isolation Island disc. So what would be your nomination for a track that you would never get tired of listening to?
Oh, blimey. Oh, blimey. There's just so many. It depends what kind of mood I'm in. If I was in a classical mood, it would have to be, without a doubt, Chopin, Opus 9, Number 2, Nocturne. It's probably the wrong way around it, but I just absolutely love that. But I'm a 90s indies chick, so all the Britpop music. So anything
Oasis.
From Oasis, definitely. So anything from Oasis will probably.
Well, you're from Sheffield. What about Jarvis Cocker and all that?
Yes, I'm not from Sheffield. I live in Sheffield,
well,
but yeah, Jarvis Cocker. Yeah, he was one of the most entertaining. Pulp were one of the most entertaining gigs I ever had the privilege of going to see in the 90s.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So,
well, we've already had a Pulp recommendation. Guy on the show, Andy Farmer. He actually recommended Pulp. So you can't have them, unfortunately.
Right. All right then. Oasis or Chopin.
Okay. Oasis, Noel Gallagher or Chopin. There we go.
That's right.
Wow. There's a choice. I bet those two have never been mentioned together in the same sentence.
That's right.
And so what are you reading now, MayKing?
Do you know, another confession. I don't know if it's as bad as, I don't read books, but
Audible?
So a book that I go to now and again is, and it's my favorite book of all time, is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Of course. Fantastic.
By Dale Carnegie.
Yes, Carnegie,
yeah, that is my go-to. To go
and
back,
it still applies today. Is that basically the reading between the lines on that? Is that
absolutely? Yeah, without a doubt. Building relationships with people, and genuinely, not like, I'm going to make friends with, connect with that person on LinkedIn because I think I could get some sales out of them. No. Genuinely building relationships, because, sometimes, well, a lot of the times, it's the people who are lurking and you don't know who they are. You might build relationships with people, but when you create content for the lurkers, and people eventually get in touch with you, you never know. That's where the magic happens. You never know who you meet, who you talk to, who's been lurking on your stuff. But when you do meet people in real life or online, be as helpful as possible. As one of my friends, John Asperian, who's a LinkedIn expert, will say, be relentlessly helpful. And I love that. I definitely echo his sentiments.
That's a nice thing to say. That's great. And finally, a new game. You're the first person to play it. Okay. We're taking on what 3 words. So if you were a destination, right, what 3 words would people use to find you? They can be any words. They don't have to be adjectives or any management speak. It can be anything.
I'm not sure. What, laugh?
Okay, that's a good one. That's one.
Hat, because I love my hats. And I guess it's going to have to be FOMO, isn't it?
Okay, you can have that. I'll give you that. Laugh, hat, and FOMO.
There you go.
Even though it's 4 words, but there we go. But that's fine. You can have that. You're the first guest. You're entitled to that anyway. That's fantastic. Aww. Laugh, hat, FOMO. All right, that's going up. So I'm gonna. I think at the end of this season, I'll have a big old word cloud of people's words, and then we'll see what that looks like. So that's funny, because we did a storming mixtape from all everybody's Desert Island discs or Isolation Island discs. So yeah, we'll do something with the words. MayKing, I'm so glad we finally got a chance to talk. You really are a real sort of gem of a person, and I know that whatever you turn your enthusiasm to is going to be a success. So, and it's been the funniest time. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for spending time with me, and maybe we can do it again in a couple of months.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Keith. Thank you.
Well, it's been great speaking to you, and take care, MayKing. All the best to you, and a very happy New year.